He's Metz. He's Tass. It's the Metzger Tassoul Show.
Mr. Tassoul, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I like the background.
I was gonna see. I gotta get set back up in my office. I was gonna see how long it took before somebody spoke. Little sales contest. They'll ask the question, wait for the answer. First one to talk loses. You know that whole drill.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, I was. There was a local, well, not local. There was a singer that was in town, band that was in town, a little country band from Nashville. They drove up, and they had their little kiosk and stuff set up, and I was searching them up on Spotify, actually. And then I saw the Metzger Tassoul Show on Spotify. I'm like, man, we've arrived.
Until you saw how many people watched it.
And then I was looking to see if anybody watched, and no, nobody watched. Nobody listened. Nobody 5-starred it. I think there was one 5-star, but it was probably from one of our guys.
That's part of Brian's job.
Yeah, 5-star it. Yeah.
So how's everything? Everything good?
Yeah, man. Everything's good. Good as can be.
We, this topic today is what is the number one way? What is your number one way to get new students in your school? And as we know, right, this is a hot topic for people because this is the way they measure. Let's just quantify what I'm saying here. When I say the majority of our industry measures success of their school by how many students they have or how many students they enroll. And I'm not saying they shouldn't use that as a measurement. All I'm saying, and I want to get your take on this, is that should just be part of the measurement on how to measure success. But I think predominantly we typically see people use that as a measuring stick by itself as far as how successful their school is. I mean, what are your thoughts on that as far as new students and
it's got to be used as one factor, right? I'll give a great example of, there's a client that I work with, and well, before I tell you that, if I said, I've got a client who enrolls over 50 students, not trials, but 50 students a month, right? And the question is that good? And there's a lot of people that would chime in and be like, oh my God, that's great. I'd love to enroll 50 students. I need 50 students. How's he enroll 50 students? And all the things. But if I was to say that, well, that same person has an 8% attrition rate, and that means they have 600 students, as an example. Out of 600, they're losing 48, so they're net 2 new students a month. So if you're a school owner who has 100 students with a 4% attrition rate, and you're enrolling 6 students a month, you're doing the same as far as enrollments are concerned, right? You're net 2, he's net 2. He's got to get that particular school's got to get a lot more to cover their attrition rate. So attrition is definitely a big factor in looking at the enrollments. And I think before we talk about this with goal setting, which I know is a boring topic, but, not setting a static goal of X dollars per month, but more of a dynamic goal. I think this is one of those goals that needs to be dynamic as well. I think people need to really understand their attrition rate before you just set a flat rate of new students and say, look, I need 10 students every month or 12 or 20 or whatever that number may be. You may need that now, but I remember years ago, this is a lot of years ago, and I was looking at a new space, and they wanted to have like P&Ls and a projection. And so I went through and I made it up a projection on a spreadsheet, and I did it over 5 years. And I think I started with like whatever it was, 100 students with a 4% attrition rate, right? And then I said, we're going to get enrolled, whatever the number was, 10 students per month. Well, that formula works until, you get to 250 plus students, then enrolling 10 students a month with a 4% attrition rate, you're at a break even, you'll never grow from that point. So either have to reduce attrition or you have to enroll more students. And I remember when I did that, it was a big eye opener for me, because I realized it's not just the number of students. It's also, you have to take into consideration attrition. I think for a lot of us, that are maybe you're a school that has, less than 100 students, you can have pretty big impact in your school. My assumption would be that you've got a pretty low attrition rate if you're doing a great job, because it's just easier to maintain relationships with 80 to 100 students than it is with 300 to 600 students, right? And so you may be able to go through a pretty quick growth trajectory, even if you're only enrolling 8 to 10 students every single month in your school, because you're only losing maybe 1 or 2 students in your school, versus a school that might be a little bit more seasoned and they have 3, 4, 500 students, but they're sitting on a attrition rate of 5%. Yeah, I think that's a part of it, right? New students is definitely a part of that, but we also have to know, well, why do we want that many students? What will it do for us? And then there's other factors, because people often equate, like you said, success, and success in these terms is dollars, right? So, I'm successful, the more students I get, the more money I make, and that also is true to a point, right? But if you have a overall low student value and don't understand how to implement its systems into that, you can be filling your school with a lot of people, but it kicks out a low student value. And I would want to know, well, how do I fix the foundational challenges and systems in our school? So when I do put a new student in, instead of kicking out a student value, I was just talking to a client, and they're just starting, right? Their student value is literally $129 a student. Well, the same exact blueprint, but in our school with the same number of students, we had a $216 student value last year. So same number of students, but a student value of almost $80 more, $9 more, whatever that number is, can make a big difference. So yeah, it's definitely one facet, right? Is student count or enrollments, but not the only thing to look at.
So a couple things. Number one, Mr. Blackman, you may be getting a call from a gentleman who wanted to reach out to some clients to see about the elite program. You were one of a few names I gave, so please take his call. Thank you. Now, but here's the thing, Tass. If we were to ask, and Mr. Peter Johnson has, number one way, have many lines in the water. It seems old generation, there was one way, but last decade, maybe even more, I've learned the number one way is a process, more students. So here's the thing. So on a consulting answer, but I want to give everybody the answer they want to hear, right?
Right.
Mr. Johnson is 100% right. There's not one way. There's not one way to get students. You really want to have multiple ways to get new students. However,
there is one thing.
I don't want to do a bait and switch on the thousands of viewers that tune in every week to see what is the best way to get new students in your school. Because if I had to pick one, one way to get new students, if somebody came to me and said, look, you can only do this to get new students in your school, what would that be? And the answer is simple. And Tass, did you and I talk about this at all?
No,
but you know.
As a matter of fact, you're frozen with your cup of coffee up to your mouth right now, so I can't even see you.
Oh, is it really? Am I frozen?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right.
You are for me. I don't know if you are for everybody else. They can chime in and comment. But no, we haven't talked about this, and it's kind of funny, right? Because we do these little party tricks all the time.
But here it is, guys. If it's about getting more students in my school, it's mass enrollments. That is the number one way to get new students. If somebody said, look, you could only do one thing, right? However, there are many branches to doing mass enrollments. But when you can enroll 15, 20, 25, 30, 50 people in an hour or 2 hours, that is the route that I would take. If you are a single school operator, if you are an owner operator with no staff, if you are a one-man or one-woman show running your school, then I would say mass intros are a great way for you until you build up your student body to generate enough revenue to hire somebody to help you in the office front. But here's a mass intro. When you want to do a mass enrollment, you need to get in front of your market. And there's two ways you do that. So pay attention, everybody. I'm trying to help here. You either have to go out into your community. Okay. You either have to go out into your community and get in front of people to invite them to a special event at your school, which is a mass enrollment event. Okay. And that event may be a goal setting through board breaking, a self-defense seminar, a focus seminar for kids, a bully defense seminar, whatever. But you got to go out in your community, or you have to have a way to get your community to come to you. And with a mass enrollment, I'm not talking about throwing a social media ad for a mass enrollment. What I would do is you need to know how to do internal marketing, free marketing, where we have our clients bring the community in to our school. And Tass, if you were to say three different things that you can do and how to make it effective, because I think if I said, give me 3 ways to do internal marketing, right? Three different things. People are going to listen to you and they're going to say, oh, we do that. That doesn't work. Right. So why don't you talk about what 3 ways free? Think of a school owner who's struggling. They don't have money to spend on marketing. Maybe they have a full-time job. They can't go out into the community. So what 3 things can they do during the class time hours to get people to come in to their school to then invite those guests to a mass intro on a Saturday where we would do an enrollment? 3 things, and then we'll talk about details in the presentation and how detail and the process of that matters, because I already know you're going to say the 3 things and people are going to say that doesn't work.
I already do that, right?
But we'll talk about the details. So what 3 random things would you?
Well, just off the cuff, here's a couple that you can do. Number 1, right? Obviously, when I say buddy day, which is why we'll come to the details, right? Like, we already do that, and then you're gonna jump off, right? But done correctly, a bring a buddy week is a great way to get people to show up. Number 1. Number 2, and this is really a disguised buddy day, is doing an instructor for the day where this is a great one. We'll talk more about the details.
And while you're talking, I may refresh my screen.
Yep. Okay. But an instructor for the day is a great one internally, because you're putting your students in a position where they can, be that instructor for the day. And well, what does every instructor need? They need students, right? So they have to bring somebody with them in order for them to teach, so that they can earn their little instructor for the day certificate. There's a little detail there for you. So we know for sure that that's going to get people to come in. And then also, this is the time of year where, we're coming in the back to school time and doing a free community event in your area. And it's all about disguising your marketing, with the season. There you are. Disguising your marketing with the season. And so if you're thinking about right now, you're a lot of, I know that down by you guys, back to school time's coming up here in August, right? And so whether that's a free community event and you're doing a Focus for Better Grades workshop where they can bring a friend with them, or if you're doing, if you're still in the heat of summer and don't go back until September, as an example, and you do a free community event, more of a stranger awareness workshop, because kids are outside right now and there's just less of a watchful eye on them, and you want to make sure your goal is to keep your community safe and rally your students behind, coming to that event and bringing somebody with them that they want to make sure that they keep safe as well. So, there's a buddy day is one, instructor for a day is a really disguised buddy day. And then, some sort of a free community event that you can help your students can go out and help you market that. That's if some easy things, if you don't have a budget, just to get people in the door, right? We can, there's Ticket Tornado, there's all kinds of referral content. There's all kinds of things that we can do to generate. You could do a pizza. Well, I'm just going to go on and on. You could do it.
There's a million things you could do, a million things. And I know where you're going on the pizza thing, because a contest,
an attendance contest for summer with retention,
15 friends, right? And you pick 5 winners, and the 5 winners won't bring 15 friends, but the 5 winners will bring 2 or 3. So now you have 10 to 15 leads come in for the winners of the free pizza party night. There's a million things, but let's talk about the buddy day. Everybody, you should write this down if you haven't heard it. Maybe you have heard it, but you forgot it. You got to understand the 4 steps of selling. And a lot of times we use the 4 steps of selling when we are calling leads or when we're trying to directly sell a product or service, but not necessarily an idea. But let's just talk about a buddy day, because every martial arts school has probably tried to do a buddy day, and every martial arts school probably has had failures where nobody brought any buddies. But you got to follow the 4 steps of selling. So step 1, what is the reason I'm making an announcement right now? The reason. Hey guys, before I dismiss you, the reason I want to just get 2 minutes or a minute of your time is I want to tell you we are going to have a buddy day next week on Wednesday and Thursday, where we'd like all of you to bring a friend, a neighbor, a coworker, a spouse, a family member, bring them to class. If you just announce buddy days next week, we will get 0 people, because that's only step 1 of 4 steps.
And by the way, you did something there, right? It's power of suggestion, right? As opposed to just saying, hey, we're having a buddy day next week. We'd love it if you guys brought somebody. But notice he said, bring a friend, a neighbor, co-worker, somebody that you
family member. Because initially people will be like, I don't even know who I bring. So you got to give power of suggestion. But before you stop talking, you got to go to step 2. You got to sell it now. You got to sell the idea. So step 2 is sell it. So why do I'm going to forget that you even made this announcement. When I go home, I'm just going to remember I went to karate or martial arts class. But you got to sell it. Guys, the reason we want you to bring a friend next week is we're going to do a pretty cool hard workout that we know all of you will be able to do. But we want you to bring a friend or a family member or a neighbor or coworker, whoever you want, to be your partner. And again, it's just next Wednesday or Thursday, because we're going to put them through the ringer and we're going to see if they can do it, if they can keep up with the class, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And by the way, every one of you that bring a friend, we will, if they get through the class, well, let me ask you, class, how many of you think you have a friend in mind that you would want to challenge and see if they can make it through a class if I put these guys through the ringer? Raise your hand. And you raise your hand and they're getting excited, especially if you work with kids, right? Well, if they make it, we'll even present them with their first white belt. But now we got to go to step 3, call to action. Step 3 is a call to action. Some of you just make an announcement about a buddy day and that's it. Some of you will make an announcement about a buddy day and say, grab some VIP passes on the back counter and give them out to your friends. You have to have a call to action. So guys, listen, before I dismiss you, I will give you guys only up to 3 passes, because we're not going to overcrowd our classes. You can take 1, 2, or 3. If you get rid of the 3 passes and you've given them to some friends and you do want another pass, you can ask us, how many of you think you have a friend or a coworker or someone you'd like to bring to class? Raise your hand and tell me if you want 1, 2, or 3 passes. Raise your hand. Well, now I give a call to action. I'm limiting this. It's very limited. You're only getting 3 max, okay? And then I closed it by saying, how many of you would like a pass and how many would you like to have? That's the closing question, because they're thinking about who they may have in mind to take 1, 2, or 3 passes. That is how you would present a buddy day. Now, here's the next thing. Go ahead, Tass. Go ahead. Oh, here's the next thing on that. When you go either out to the community and teach a self-defense class, a little martial arts class at a business or a daycare or a summer camp or whatever, or you have buddies that come to your class, how many of you plan the class as far as what you're going to teach with the thought of, I got to teach a class for recruiting purposes, not for teaching somebody martial arts in 1 hour class, in a 1 hour class. Most of you might plan a class of what you're going to teach in a self-defense seminar as your primary focus, as opposed to, what can I teach that's going to get these students excited or these prospects excited to want to come back or join my martial arts program? So you have to shift your mindset on what you're going to do once you do have buddies. And when you have buddies in the class, do you guys also understand that if you're working with kids, a lot of times those buddies will come with your student and not their parent? So what are you going to do to get these kids that don't even have their parents there excited to run home, to get their mom and dad to register for your free community event on Saturday, where they're going to get to do a martial arts class, break a board, have pizza, or whatever you're going to do? What are you going to do? Are you thinking about how to anchor that in, so the child is just thinking, I just got to call my mom, I want her to register? Well, you got to follow the 4 steps of selling again when you're in front of people, when you're in front of these prospects. Now, this is an example, by the way, if you're like a one-man or one-woman show. Anytime we get prospects in our building, we want to get them financially committed one way or the other, meaning either get them enrolled or get them on some kind of paid trial. Why? Because they're emotionally vested right now. When they walk out of your martial arts school, the rest of the world takes over the forefront of their minds, and they're not emotionally vested in your school. But if they paid $20 for 2 weeks or $40 or $50, whatever they do for a trial, more than not, they will come back to get their money's worth and do that trial. So we want to try to get them signed up on something, but that's not always possible when the parents aren't there and they came with a friend or a student. Go ahead, Cass.
Yeah, I mean, and I know on the Edge site, we've got different, there's a buddy day thing on there. There's a pizza party thing. There's a lot of different things that are on there. Mr. Blatten is talking about having, what does he have here? Students receive invitations, buddies must bring invitations that have the release signatures, right? It's just their information. So, if you're not going to go up to somebody, and this is probably one of the biggest cardinal sins that I see with, like you said, a student that brings a friend. The student and their family brings along Johnny, and then nobody gets Johnny's information, right? You should have a waiver that's signed, even if it's signed by that parent. And the other thing is if I'm sending my kid with somebody, you better rest assured that I have at least know their first name and their phone number. So you should be able to at minimum get that information. But this is something that as a single owner operator, you probably can, you'll if you do this right, you'll be all over this. But you then have to train your team, because your team will say over time, right? So for those of you that have a team and they do buddy days, well, sir, we've done buddy days, they just don't work. Well, they don't work, or we didn't work it, right? Because we didn't get the information from the people that were actually there. We didn't have contact info. I've had this happen with birthday parties, right? We have a birthday party and there's 15 guests that are on the floor. When I ran a birthday party, I would pull the waiver. Jimmy, come on up, line up. Sally, come on up. And if there were kids that were left sitting down, I didn't have their information. And so I'd have to go to that birthday party parent and say, hey, I need their information before we get started, right? So, because then we can follow up with those people, right? And by the way, God forbid anything were ever to happen, you want to make sure that you have some sort of release. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't make it difficult, right? Just make it fun. And there's a little trick to this, like, we do this at the end of the class, right? Anytime there's one buddy or 100 buddies, it doesn't matter. When we have a buddy event, we'll have one of our students break a board, right? And then we'll say, where are all of our buddies at? Who else wants to break a board? I don't know. You guys think you can break a board? This is your first time. I don't know if you can really do it. Do you think you can do it? Well, look, unfortunately, this is why we just at the end of class. We don't have enough time today for everyone to break a board, but I'll tell you what, I promise if you really want to break a board, come see me after class, and I'm going to reserve a board for you guys. And then I promise I'll give mom and dad a call and let them know. Okay. Well, then after class, I'm going to, in a pencil, I'm going to have the kids come up to me on one of those, small Paulowina boards, little confidence boards. I'm going to say, all right, what's your name and what's your phone number? And I'm going to write it down. Right. And now I have, if nothing else, at least I have a stack of boards of people that want to come back with their name and phone number on it so I can reach out to the parents. There's always a way. It's just, you have to be conscious of every single step. And part of closing it is not just closing it to get people to get there. The 4 steps of selling really start all over again, right? Now that the buddy's there, You got to give them the reason they're there. You got to sell them on how much fun it's going to be. There's got to be a call to action, which in this case might be the board break to come back. And you got to close it by getting their information so that you can call mom and dad and say, hey, I promise I'd give you guys a call. You really want to break a board, but we just have enough time, right? So there's always a way to do it, but you have to be mindful of it and you have to be intentional, because otherwise you'll do what most people do. You will do a buddy event, you'll get buddies to show, and you will not get enrollments from it. And you'll say, well, it just doesn't work. But if you follow it through every step of the way, it will work, right? And same thing, we did it with birthday parties in the past. I remember doing free birthday parties. It was a free party because all I want to do is generate leads. And I was in my early 20s, man. And so I remember it was one Saturday and you know, the party, it was like, and I wasn't teaching classes on Saturday, and the party was like 11 o'clock or whatever it was. And I had gone out the night before. I was in my early 20s. I was exhausted. And then we would do the cake with the student's picture on it. So I had to get the cake done. I did this and then went to the school, and I'm like, I'm just done. I'm not doing parties anymore. They just don't work. And well, they didn't work because I didn't have anyone's lead info. And if I did, I never followed up with them. That's why they didn't work, right? So it worked great to get bodies on the floor, but I wasn't following through doing what I needed to do. And that was, you know, that's a lesson for some of us maybe still, right? You got to follow through and act on those leads.
Here's what I wish, Mr. Blackman, if you're still on, being that you're doing a buddy week this week, just put in the chat box, how many students do you have, Mr. Blackman? Because, you know, people are listening to this and I'm watching people jump on, jump off. I wish it was easy, guys. I mean, this is why it doesn't work. I wish I could say, here's how you get new students, do mass intros. Here's how you get new students, do a buddy day, and they'll just come flocking in, right?
But let me interrupt for a second. But a lot of people go, oh, let me make it easy. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with this, right? But you go, here's my $500 for my social media campaign, XYZ company, go run that for me. Oh, I want more students. Here's $1,000, because we want to take the easy way.
Active
right?
students, Mr. Blackman. We're going to get the smaller number, being it's dead of summer. So only students that are consistently coming in right now, even though we're in July. Go ahead.
See how trained he is? Asking if you want active or roster. Nice work. He wants to be transparent and honest.
Right.
Give him the roster plus 100, Mr. Blackman.
Like everybody else.
Round to the nearest 100, which most people do. Yeah.
Here's his active count, right? 500 active. And just for the heck of it, what's the roster? Just so people can see how many students on your roster. And active count is we need students that are coming, you know, at least once a week, current on their dues. That's active, right? But on the roster, which a lot of people will come back probably after summer as we get closer to school, we have 600 students on the roster. The reason, Mr. Blackman, that I wanted you to put that up is because anybody that's still watching, getting bored of us talking about mass intros and buddy days, tuning in maybe because they want the golden nugget. This is what happens when you just empty your cup and follow the systems. I mean, how many of you on here have 500 students that are active or 600 students on your roster? How many of you, right? And that's not the end all be all, because if we talked about Mr. Blackman's gross revenue, right? Well, you're in seven figures, you know, you're in the seven figures, right? So if somebody's like, well, we got 500 students, right? And by the way, Mr. Blackman does not have vans and after school pickup programs and, you know, all that stuff. He does not have that. So that's different too. But the thing is, there's a system to business. And unfortunately, I have not figured out how to be extremely successful easy. I mean, I think put it this way, it's easy because there's a blueprint, but there's a lot of work involved. And I'm just upfront with people. Everybody wants, right? I'm seeing all this crap about the Powerball. Are you seeing this stuff?
Is it an all-time high or something? I don't even watch it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was over $1 billion. The cash payout was like 530 million cash, if you want to take the lump sum. And somebody in LA got the winning ticket in Los Angeles, right? But my point is so many people play the lottery, so many people, because it's easy. and we just want easy. I just want to hit the lottery. I was having a talk with my brother about this. Why the hell do people start playing the lottery when it hits $1 billion, but they don't play when it's 200 million?
Right.
Like, it's like, oh yeah, it's Powerball. It's $1 billion. I got to play. I'm going to buy like 10 tickets. You're not going to buy 10 tickets when it's 100 billion. My point is you can play the lottery and people do win the lottery. People do get lucky. People in business do get lucky. People just strike gold sometimes. In our profession, right? In our martial arts schools, there's a science and a method to increase the odds of success from everything we do. From where are we going to open a school? How big is that school going to be? Right? What are the expenses of that school? The training of the staff and what we do. We want to increase the probability of success, right? So there's a method. Now, for people who don't do that, oh, I found a space, I open a school, I go in and my God, we have 500 students. We struck gold, we got lucky. That is not duplicatable though. If you live in the heart of Beverly Hills, Chicago, San Francisco, New York City, like where household incomes are 150,000 plus a household income, and homes start at $1 million, and the population is so dense, and you have 500 students in your school. Can you move to Kansas and do that? No, you can't unless you have a blueprint. And it brings me to Denise Ramos, right? Who has 15,000 people in her town, 15,000,
like
with
that.
the average household income of 24,000.
Ridiculous, yeah.
In a small town in Oklahoma, and 5 other martial arts schools in that town.
Right.
And she's doing about $500,000 a year in her martial arts school.
Mm-hmm.
But there's work. There's work to be done. There's work.
There is.
And so, that's the only thing I wish we can figure out. And then, we'd be the most successful people in the world, because everybody would join on if we say, there you go, you are now successful, But I tell people the truth. You got to have an open mind. You got to be willing to work. Most people aren't.
You do. And it's interesting because, you're giving that perspective. Yesterday, I was telling a client, I'm like, this is not a hard business. I mean, you get people in, you get them enrolled, you upgrade them, and you renew them. That's it. That's the business. Now, that's the business, but there's steps for all of those things. And a lot of us tend to major in the minors, and we're focusing on things. I won't tell you who the person was, but somebody I hadn't talked to in a long time that was in the family. And he called me up the other day and we had a good conversation. He's like, I got to get these, he goes, I have been out of brochures for 2 years. He says, I got to get these brochures printed. I got to get this done. And we're talking about the lack of students coming in and so on and so forth. I said, sir, do you really think printing brochures is going to make or break he's like, yeah, that's a good point. He goes, I guess I'm not going to be printing brochures, right? Like, we get caught up in some of these things. And that's the thing I would challenge people to look at is what you're doing right now, helping you get a new student or keep a new student. Like, that's it. You're going to say, but that's not possible because I still have to clean the floor and I still got to, I get it. But if that's where you're spending the majority of your time, that's where you're going to have a nice clean school with nobody in it. But you need to focus time on, am I recruiting somebody or am I keeping somebody, or keeping somebody on retention? So those are the two things. But again, there's ways and lists of things to do underneath that. And this is why we say, what's the number one way to get the most students, right? Well, it's not necessarily going out and messaging people on Facebook, right? That's not going to be the fastest. It can work. It's not flyering the parking lot like we did years ago. And one of my team members called me and they were in the back of a police car because they couldn't do it, right? That's not necessarily the best way to do it. We talked about it. Mass intros, get in front of your market. Here's a little tip for you. If you guys have been paying attention and you've done the summer special as an example, and you're a single person owner operator, and maybe you've got 15 or 30 summer specials and you're struggling right now because, like, I just don't have time to sit down and do their progress check with them. Number one, we got to find the time, right? We have to make it a priority. Number two, that's another example of you could this Saturday have a confidence through board breaking workshop as an example. Pick whatever theme you want that you're a workshop that you're going to do. It's this Saturday. It's for all of your people that are in that summer special. You invite them personally. You get all of them over to that event. And at the end of that event, you do your mass intro and you roll everybody in an hour, as opposed to trying to find time during the week to do a progress check with them. So that's another option. If you're sitting on a lot of summer specials right now that need to be converted, you're just finding it very difficult to meet with them.
Oh, and here's the thing, all these different options, and we just talked about internal marketing because I wanted to be mindful of spending your money, right? You know, and just give you free ways to drive leads and to promote a mass enrollment. But there's external marketing and there's internal marketing. There's paid advertising and there's sweat equity. I mean, by the way, there's four. There's internal, external, paid, and sweat equity.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Is that better for you?
Good. That's good. Let's back to number 4.
Yep. So my point is, we wanted to just give you some free tips, but you know, all of these things can follow the same blueprint on how to make them successful. There's a blueprint that we follow to get all these branches to be successful. And when you become great at the process, that area can become very successful. And then Mr. Blackman says, how do you get your team on board with the same drive as us owners? Mr. Blackman, everybody has their own job to do, right? And there's a reason why you're an owner and not everybody's an owner, because it's not about the drive. It's owners take the risk, right? Owners are the ones who will risk it all to try to build up the company. The drive comes from pride in the job that we do. So as much drive as I need you to put into being an owner and a leader and a manager, I need my program director to put as much drive into being a program director. But people will start to lose drive if A, we don't take care of our people, B, they don't see a result of all the work they're putting in with a way to grow, C, leadership and support, D, maybe I'll stop at D, systemizing to where it's not harder than it has to be, right? And sometimes as owners, we throw a bunch of balls into their lap and they have to try to juggle all these balls, and it's overwhelming, it's demotivating, it's difficult. And then also we have to deal with failure sometimes. And it's how we handle and address the failures. Are we building them up or knocking them down, you know, with everybody? So there's a drive comes from not just the individual, but from the leadership around. And by the way, Mr. Blackman, I would say to that question too, it's something you recognize as an owner, because there's a reason why you're in our family. You're in the CMA or the elite family, because you need leadership to keep that drive, right? And so we all need coaches and mentors to push us, to drive us, not just rely on the individual and be like, why don't you have more drive? Why don't you care more? Why don't you be more? It's a team effort. It's absolutely a team effort. And I think you have a phenomenal team. As I've told you many, many times, you have a phenomenal team. But here's the good news, Mr. Blackman. At the Owner Boot Camp, August 18th and 19th, we are going to be going over stuff like this as well. And I just got confirmation. Well, I'm not going to broadcast it publicly. I'll let everybody know that's signed up for the Owners Boot Camp. We already have a waiting list for the next Owners Boot Camp, because this one filled up within 5 minutes. But we'll let everybody know the topics, what's going to be covered, the special guests we have coming in, and all that stuff. But anyway, that's my answer. Do you want to expand or have any comments on the question?
No, I just, like you said, I mean, leadership, right? And showing them the vision, showing them the path, and you say it all the time, right? It's about the people. It's about finding the right people or the right people in the right seat. And I think that's the most important thing. And this is an industry that's We're not teaching somebody how to, scan orders at a grocery store, or stock a shelf, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. And this is an industry that can be difficult to find people. And when you do find those great people, and it was your number one thing, you got to take care of them, right? And you got to find more people just like that. I know, and you made this is interesting. And I just was talking with Mandy, as a matter of fact, and their company, they have a personal recruit bonus. So if they personally recruit someone that starts a publication, she's in the publication industry, right? And that person goes through their what they call ramp up, and they start their publication. It's a $10,000 personal recruitment bonus they'll give someone. That's what they're willing to pay to find good people. I'm not suggesting everybody go on there and do that, but there's something to be said about that. Like, if you have great employees, right? Are you offering them something to find someone to bring them back to you? And if we do that, it's implied. And because we really try to take great care of our people, because of the days off they get over the holidays and all the things that we do. So it starts the buzz and maybe talking at the holiday parties when they're out and they're like, well, I'm off work for the next 14 days or 12 days or whatever it may be. You get paid for that? Yeah, I get paid for that. And they can compare stories a little bit. It's kind of implied out there, but that's another option for people. If you're looking for good people, are you willing to throw that out there? And $10,000 is an extreme amount of money, right? We're small mom and pop schools, some of us. So, but a $500 bonus could go a long way to find somebody great that could make an unbelievable impact in your business. Unbelievable.
And I love that idea. And I'm actually going to take it for our own team members on if they find somebody, not students, but if they find somebody that ends up coming on board as a full timer,
right?
I want to give them $10,000.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you, Tess.
I want to. I'm not going to, but I want to.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, and you have to have a system for that, right? They got to complete the training. So I'm giving you guys a snapshot, but they've got to complete the training. They got, like you said, come on full time and maybe pass XYZ criteria. So you're not just having people throw anybody and everybody at you, but it gets the buzz going.
It does. And listen, at the end of the day, we're all in the same family, the martial arts family. I believe in what we do. I believe we're making communities better. But guys, you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that's just it. You don't know what you don't know. How is Mr. Blackman in Albuquerque, New Mexico, one of the most impoverished states in the country, unemployment rate high, with 500 students active, 600 on the roster, doing 7 figures? Do you ever ask yourself how, like why, or do you just justify and make excuses in your own mind? Oh, well, he must be a McDojo. He nickel and dimes. He must be, stop that thinking. For any of you, and by the way, why do I keep repeating myself on that? Because I'm going to be honest with you, the way my mind works. If you have never had a one-on-one conversation with Mr. Tassoul or myself, one-on-one, not hearing us speak to a group, one-on-one, and never been in the elite program, you got to be thinking something, or else you would call. But you'll be afraid. You don't call because you're like, oh, they're just going to try to sell me. That's correct. If I think I can help you, I will try to sell you on our program. I will absolutely try to sell you if I think I can help you. But you don't have to buy. Why don't you just hear it out and see if it makes sense? Like, try it. I mean, it's like people want to be successful, but they want to make excuses and get in their own way. I don't understand that logic. And by the way, call us, call another consulting group and another consulting group. And
but let me take it one step further than that. I believe that you're 100% right. And you say you don't have to buy, but most of you will, and you're afraid that you will, and you're afraid that you won't take action. So therefore, that's why you're not calling. And here's what I'll leave everybody with is this. Some of us are so busy chasing and watching every possible thing that we can from everybody. That can work for people, but I know it didn't work for me. because you're getting bits and pieces of success from different people, and you're trying to take the Chevy chassis and the Ford doors and the motor from this company, and you're trying to put all of it together and make it look like this cool, clean, neat car. It's just not going to work, right? It's very difficult to do that because there's different systems, and there's a lot of ways to run a martial arts business. There's a few ways to do it and maximize your success. And I believe, and we've said this, that we do have the best way to maximize success in your business. So, take it for what it's worth, but find somebody or some company, right? If you're looking for help, and follow it and dive deep and go in with both feet and stop just, playing outside on the edge, and go deep with it, because that's where the true success is when you really get it. You're not going to get the information you need from watching, 20 of these different podcasts or whatever they are from different people every week. You're going to get bits and pieces, not understand how everything else works and all the details to make those things work.
And the other thing, I'll say 2 more points. I love the Mr. Schwartz story. I mean, if I don't think we can help you, I'm going to tell you, no, do this first. And Mr. Schwartz brings this up all the time. He came to me and said, hey, I saw the seminar. I want to join Elite. I asked them a couple questions. I said, I'm not going to take your money to join Elite. We got to get you more students. So do this first. Call me when you have this many students. He did. And I said, well, if you did that, go do this now and get to this many students. He did that. And then he came to another event and he said, sir, you told me no. Can I join yet? And I said, where are you at? And he joined. And I think your life has changed, right, since doing that. But you did. You put in the work. The other thing I'm going to tell all of you, when you hear people talk about, and it's what Tassoul said, or at the very beginning of this, he said, there's a school that's enrolling 50 students. Is that good? When you hear people saying, we do it this way. I mean, we're doing $80,000 a month. We're blessed. We're doing $1 million a year. We're blessed, and we have our systems and we do this. What you don't know is, with some tweaks, you would be doing $1.5 million a year. So we love the little sayings, right? We love, hey, good is the enemy of great. But you don't understand that a lot of you are doing good, but you're not doing great. You're doing good, and therefore you think you're doing great. You think you know what you're doing, but now you may be saying, well, how do you know you're doing great?
Dude, are you looking at your phone to pull out your calculator and say, take your gross divided by your students? And I thought that's where you're going with that.
No. But what I am saying is 20 years, here's why I know, 20 years of working with school owners one-on-one, we do pull out the calculators. We do look at it. Schools that are doing great, schools that are doing $1 million a year. How many students do you have? What are you charging? Okay, let me break this down and show you how much money you're leaving on the table. You're not doing great. You're doing really good, but you're not doing great. You're doing really good. The reason why you think you're doing great is because compared to all of the other martial arts schools in the industry, you're in the top 1%, top 0.5%, top 0.1% if you're doing $1 million a year in one location, let's say, right? Whatever that is. So you're comparing, and you that's justification that you are doing great. The difference between a true entrepreneur and a karate school owner or a martial arts school owner is I do not compare my business with the other martial arts schools. I compare my business to all other businesses. And I had a meeting with my directors. I said, why aren't we a $25 million a year company? Let's set that goal. I want to be a $25 million company. Because I'm not looking at what Joe's Karate Shack down the street's doing. That doesn't interest me at all, right? It's how do we maximize our business through the avenue of our passions. We love martial arts. We believe in martial arts. I want to take that passion and I want to make it a big, huge, viable business. Not just for me, but going back to Mr. Blackman, for all of my team and all of my staff and all of my people to come on this journey with us. That's the difference. That's the difference. And so I'll say it again. I don't know why you don't call us or check us out. I mean, some of you don't like our approach. Some of you think we're pompous. Some of you think we're not funny. Some of you think we're full of shit. I mean, you all have your justifications, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if we can help you, take it, right? But I'm not saying just us. I think there's a lot of different people and groups out there that can help you. But stop thinking it's not what you know, it's what you don't know that holds you back in life. Just remember that. Okay?
And by the way, New York City rent alone is like $3,000 or more. That's nothing. But I get New York's expensive, right?
Is that for an apartment or is that for your karate school or your martial arts school?
Yeah, right.
Because I was just looking at a space yesterday, sir, that was going to be $11,500 a month for one of my schools
in Florida.
And
That's got to be for apartment.
Yeah, I got it.
I don't know if you could find a space in New York City, even if it's 1,000 square feet, for $3,000 a month.
No, I don't think so. So I don't know. I don't know what that means. But anyway, hey, we can go on. And so there it is. You guys know how to reach us. You can find us on Facebook, DM us, call Maya, talk with Stephanie Connor, talk with Ernie Palesco, DM Mr. Blackman if you want to ask questions. Martial arts school, basic rent of a school. Well, then I'm going to open schools in New York City then, because I'm paying $8,000 average a month. I'm paying 85. What am I paying? I'm paying 9,500 for my latest school I just opened. That's 2,400 square feet. 9,500 a month for 2,400 square feet. So that's a blessing, Mr. Rivera. That's a blessing. So anyway, anything else, Tass?
No, I think we're good. I mean, hopefully you guys, when you watch these things, it's just not just to pass the time and check off the box, that you actually take action. Either A, go set up a mass intro, or B, do some follow up and make a phone call and figure out how you can, learn more about it and how we can help, change your school if that's what you're looking for.
And here's Mr. Arsamont, who's one of my elite consultants, hugely successful school owner, phenomenal martial artist, and just an all-around great guy. Mr. Josh.
That was good.
But we are here to help. Everyone needs a coach to get to the next level. It's an investment in your – here's the deal, guys. If you wanted to try Maya, we ask you to try it for 90 days. After 90 days, if it's not working, you don't think it's worth it, you quit. You stop. Try it for 90 days. I mean, that's it. But anyway, we're not going to go into the infomercial. Have a great week, everybody. Mr. Arsamont, thank you. Mr. Blackman, thank you. Mr. Schwartz, everybody that participated, Mr. Walls, Mr. Rivera, everybody here. Mr. Peter Johnson, thank you, guys. We'll see everybody next week.
You got it. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys jumping on.
All right, bye, guys.